Are we hearing me now? Do we got sound? Yes, you can hear me, Sarah?
Good.
Awesome. Wow, I figured out something. Not really, but, makes it sound more important because, Doc's the one on audio, but...
No, just hold on a second because I need to check something.
They call the justice system. Okay, guys? It's going to be okay. Here we go.
Okay, wait a minute.
I hope you have your drinks ready or
Audio
snacks.
is gone again?
Let's see. Okay. Is everything plugged in?
What?
It's back. Yay. Okay. Hey, Matt. We don't know what's going on. Doc's on it, though. Oh, if you could read lips, Sarah, you wouldn't want to, darling. Did you guys hear the introduction or not? Give me a thumbs down. Okay. Here we go. Start with our first slide, babe. We're going to start with the first slide. We're just going to jump into it. I have my...
Right?
I have,
coming up. It takes time.
have to have my squeegee ball here. Okay. So today we're examining this case up in Alaska. And it's really the patterns of violence against the Alaska Native women and the questions about the justice system and who they're choosing to protect up there and actually everywhere. In July of 2024, Brian Stephen Smith, he was a South African immigrant, was sentenced to 226 years in prison for murdering 2 Alaskan Native women. There is evidence, though, that there was a third victim, you guys. And that family has spent years just trying to get her death even recognized. So we're going to start with the story of Kathleen Jo Henry and Victoria Rosaline Abouchuk and Cassandra Lee Boskovsky. And I'm sorry if I murder these names. I'm really trying, everybody. Okay? Sarah says hi, Doc.
Hi.
So, the 3 Alaskan Native women who encountered this killer, the system failed them big time. Let's go with the next one. Doc. Okay. Let's see. It did not go.
There we go.
Yay. I'm not getting it.
Yeah, you will in a second.
Okay. Okie doke. So, his name was Brian Stephen Smith, and he was born in South Africa and in the Queensland area. He met Stephanie Bislin online while they were gaming, and they took the relationship offline where they started chatting with each other. And from now on, we're going to call him Thing 2. He no longer gets his name. We don't like him. Hey, Coolio's here. Awesome, dude. So Thing 2 had this business deal that he said had gone bad there in South Africa. And so he decided he needed to leave. He'd never left South Africa before, and he left in a hurry. So who knows what that background is? We may never know, you guys. He came to the United States and he married Stephanie Bislin, and she was a bluegrass musician, and she was quite a bit older than him. I think they had close to, 15 or more years between them. And she stated that he was a great husband who doted on her, and he was an outdoorsman, and when he got to Alaska, he loved it, and was taking videos, and he had drones and of course guns. And he also liked to take solo trips around Alaska. And so now Stephanie, with everything that's come forward, she says she's caught between her mind and her heart. And you're going to wonder about some of that with her, because some of the stupid stuff she says, I just don't get it. But so she sat behind him for the whole trial. But as some of this information was coming out, they said that it was like she just kept sinking into herself because it gets a little dark. But she kept talking about how depressed he was. Yeah, well, he was still breathing. He had made her a handmade ukulele, and he built storage area for her garden supplies. So she was trying to show everybody what a great guy he was. But in a comment he made on one of his videos, he had even said that Alaska is the perfect place for a murder because so many places to drop a body. So that kind of foretold this dude and his thoughts. The cops even asked her at one time if she was pimping for him, and she denied it. And she said that, we all have tempers, but, she just didn't see what they were saying about him, Yeah, I think there are some bodies, Matt, in South Africa. They might have to dig a little deep, but they're going to find them. So this case ended up with the title of the Memory Card Murders. And on September 4th, 2019, Thing 2 tortured and killed Kathleen Jo Henry. She was 30 years old at the Marriott Place Suites in Midtown, Anchorage. And he was an employee at the hotel, so he got a discount. Isn't that nice? Get a discount so you can harm people. Hey, Spectrum of Thoughts. Nice for you to be here. But the thing that set this apart was Thing's disturbing compulsion to record his crimes. And he tortured this girl. It was like he played a game of cat and mouse with her. He filmed the whole thing. He is heard on it telling her that she needs to die, that she is going to die. He makes the comment that in my movies, everybody always dies. What are my followers going to think of me? So that right there almost leads me to believe that he did some dark net stuff, you guys. I mean, if he's talking about movies and he was going to get an award for his performance, and he was just vile to this poor girl. There are videos online where you can hear her as, he's torturing her, but none of us need to hear that. I'm sorry. If you want to go looking for him, hey, I didn't want to give anybody bad dreams. And he even made this one got me. He says, people need to know when they're being serial killed. So right there, he is actually saying he's a serial killer because he's saying you need to know when you're being serial killed. He later took her body and dumped it along the Seward Highway south of Anchorage. And his crimes might never have come to the forefront, pinpointing him as the one that did them if it wasn't for Valerie Casler. And she is the unsung hero. Valerie has had a rough life. Along with Kathleen. Kathleen was homeless. Valerie was homeless and had an addiction. And she said that one night she was in front of a store and it was raining. And this guy, thing two, pulls up in his black truck that he called the Chick Magnet and asked her if she wanted to get in out of the cold and go for a drive. And she was like, okay, sure. Because, you know, she had worked as a lady of the evening at times for her addictions. So they were driving around for hours. And then he stopped at a gas station and went in to get something to drink. And there is video of that. Well, she dropped her cell phone, she said. And when she went to reach under it, she found a second cell phone. And Valerie kind of had, you know, light fingers. And so she took the phone. So that night when she got back to her tent, because she was living in a tent, she decided to see what was on the phone, you know. And what she found, there were 39 photos and over 12 videos. And she said it was like watching a horror show. And she was in shock. She didn't know what to do. She was in fear of her life. You know, she was scared to go to the police. She did go tell the other women, you know, that walked the streets to, you know, hey, you need to get out there and stay away from this guy because he's dangerous, you know. So she did warn the women, but the more she thought about it, she knew she could get arrested for possibly theft, maybe prostitution. She didn't know that Alaska had passed immunity laws in 2016 and 17 that protected sex workers, you know, against reporting serious crimes. She had no idea. And so she hid out, she said, for quite a while. And then she decided, well, if she didn't take the phone in, she could take a memory card. So she lifted a memory card and downloaded everything. And 10 days after she had taken it, she took it to the police. And this is really what got this investigation going. And as they were watching the video, one of the police officers, or I think he was a safety officer, heard the voice because he didn't film himself on this video. So it was just his voice, but he had that South African accent. And so he told him, I've run across this guy and this is his name. And so that's what they did, is they started researching him. Well, it wasn't till October 8th that they were able to get Thing 2 because he had been on vacation. And so they got him at the airport at the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. They were there to greet him. His wife wasn't with him. She was with relatives at the time. And it was an 8-hour interrogation. And if you want to watch the videos, you guys, he plays stupid for part of it. It's, you know, like, well, I don't remember that, you know. I don't remember, you know, killing anyone. And, you know, I remember I did, you know, hear about it, but, you know, it wasn't me. I think I would remember that. And then when they took a bathroom break, he told the troopers, I'm going to make you famous. And he even asked him, after he had finally admitted that he had deleted Kathleen, he told him, as they got up to leave, he says, you got to go right now? Do you want to sit down and talk some more? And then he proceeded to tell them that he had murdered another woman, and it turned out to be Veronica Abouchuk. He had picked her up in 2018, so this was before Kathleen. This would have been one of his earlier victims. And he stated it was when his wife was on a trip. So he went and driving, because that was how he released stress, was he would go driving and go down by where the St. Francis house, where a lot of the vulnerable women would go to get a meal. And he picked her up and said, hey, do you want to have a room for tonight and some food? And so she went with him. And then when he got her, he took her to his house. So this was before Kathleen. So he took her to his home. And because she was homeless, he had told her to shower because she smelled. Lovely dude. And then she refused. And I don't know, maybe she was getting scared, you guys. It could be. I don't know. You go with a strange guy, you show up you're at his home and he's wanting you to get in the shower. So after she refused, I think the second time, he went into the garage and he retrieved a weapon. And then he came back and he proceeded to delete her by shooting her in the head. And eventually, she was found in 2019, but that was, in April. So it took a while before they found Veronica. But actually, the person that was found by the mushroom hunters and the berry pickers, they can't decide which one it was. Hey, LaDonna, good to see you. Hey, guys. I hope I'm not making anybody scared here, but this guy is just spooky. He eventually told them where he took her, and he actually told them that he had taken her to out by the power plant. And so they went out there and they actually found her skull with a bullet hole, and they were able to then, with dental records, identify her. And they had identified her before because someone had been found with her ID in 2018, but it was the wrong person. So when they told her poor daughter, she kept thinking, well, maybe they made a mistake again, but they didn't. It was Veronica. They didn't find the rest of her. So I don't know what happened. I mean, she'd been out there for a long time. We know Alaska has a lot of wild animals. I don't know, but at least they were able to find something to at least give the family an identification. But what they didn't realize as they were searching the phone is there was more, because this guy really liked to take pictures and movies. And so there was another woman, and you could tell she was severely beaten and probably deceased. Now, there is an activist up in Alaska. Her name is Andrea Comack, and she stands for the Indigenous women. She is one, and she's been very vocal on this case, and she shows the 3 photos that they found. She blurs things out, but she shows them if you want to take a look. And she's a great activist. If you want to follow her on Facebook, she does some TikToks because she's a voice for these women, and that's important. And that's what we got to remember. Let's keep the focus there. So one of the gentlemen said in the police department said he thought that did look like Cassandra Lee Babowski because her family had been trying to find her for years. In 2018, there was a woman named Alicia Youngblood. Now, who is she? Well, she had met Thing 2 at Dow Engineering when they both worked there. And he started an affair with her because I guess she liked some of his kink, But he told her and showed her some photos of a woman that he said he had deleted. And she was scared. So she contacted Crime Stoppers, got a hold of the police, and told them, and, said that this is what this guy is doing. And so for over a month, she kept trying to get these police to do something. She was also continuing a relationship with this guy, hoping that he would give her some evidence. Alicia was trying to get him to send her a picture, give her names, something that the police would act upon. And she had the text that she showed the police where she's asking Thing 2, these, who is this? What is going, why did you do it? but the police dismissed her reports. This was in 2018 after Veronica's death. So if they had listened to her, Kathleen could still be with us, and so could Cassandra. But Alicia even took them out to the power plant and told them that this is where Thing 2 had brought her and said, this is where I left this victim. And over there's that, see that mattress and that black bag? Those are some of the things I used. But the police just never even bothered to question Thing 2. They just dropped it. And Alicia got scared, because she thought eventually he's going to realize what I'm doing. And some of her phone calls to the police, where she's telling him, he's making me do things I don't want to do. You've got to do something. So finally in September of 2018, she took her children and moved to the lower 48 states because she was scared. Eventually, the stress of everything after it came out about what happened with Kathleen Joe Henry, she took her life. Alicia just couldn't deal with the guilt that she wasn't able to stop this. And it wasn't her fault. She wasn't a cop. Hey, Racy, thanks for popping in. Good to see you, darling. So without the consequences, Thing 2 went on to, delete Kathleen. And even in a recording in July of 2024, he admits that if the police had contacted him back in 2020, in 2018, and said something about, hey, we've heard these reports that you might have harmed someone. He says, I wouldn't have proceeded to go on with it. He said they could have prevented deaths. Even Thing 2 said the cops could have prevented more deaths. That's scary. So after his arrest, they said that because when he was arrested in 2019, Alicia did follow the case. So that was before she did take her life. And they really did say that she was just so sad and the guilt got to her. So truthfully, Alicia was another victim of his. She tried to warn the police. And then a little about Kathleen Joe Henry. She was born in December of 1988 in Bethel, Alaska. She was Yupik, Eskimo woman from the village of Eek. She was only 30 years old at the time. Life had never been easy for her. She mentioned in one of her posts that she had something like, I think, 7 boyfriends and a ex-husband, and she was afraid that eventually she would be disabled by one of them. So I think she was in relationships that were not safe. And so at the time she was divorced and she was homeless. She did spend some time in prison. They didn't say what for, but we know that, she had an addiction problem and she was a sex worker at times so that she could, make a living and get her, her addiction. But while she was in prison, she got her GED and she was so proud of that, you guys. It was awesome. You could just tell this girl was so happy she had got her GED because she dropped out of school young. And she loved poetry, but she struggled, and it happens. And we can't be blaming women that have these kind of issues. Now, Veronica Abouchuk was 52 when her family reported her missing in February of 2019. So she actually was deleted in 2018, but wasn't reported until 2019. They said it had been 7 months since the family had heard from her, and they were getting concerned because even though a lot of these vulnerable women are homeless, they stay in touch with family. It might not be every week or every month. Some do, but they stay in touch. She was from Stebbins, which is another small village in Alaska, and she really struggled with addiction. And then the third, Moo's sitting here chewing on stuff. Moo, stop. You got to be good. She's like, no, I don't. Come on, Moo. And so the third person is Cassandra Lee Boskofsky. I'm sorry, guys. Cassandra. I don't want to butcher her name. I'm sorry. She was 38 and had grown up in two different communities, Old Harbor and Aquin. Cassandra's cousin Nick described their relationship since she'd been born. He said she didn't have a stable home. Her father and mother both liked their alcohol. But he said even though she really had a rough childhood, she could still be loved. And he said she loved me dearly and I loved her. She was the mother of 7. She had a small blue butterfly tattoo. And on September 18th, 2019 was the last her family had heard from her. She had actually contacted one of her aunts on September 18th to wish her a happy birthday. So that's how come they know when the last contact with Cassandra was. Cassandra, then the community where in these communities, you guys, the family connection's huge. Alaska's very isolated in some of these areas. So family's everything. It's a beautiful country, but it's also isolating. And even Thing 2 made a comment about, that people on the edge like to come up to Alaska. He was on the edge for sure. But after her family did report her missing, there were so many numbers of the missing and murdered Indigenous people in Alaska. It was like one more person on the list. What they didn't know was that the police had this evidence already. So Thing 2 was arrested in October of 2019. After his interrogation, they arrested him right away. And that's when the forensic techs found these 3 deleted photos, and they turned out to be this woman that appears to be really beaten on the ground, but there's a man's foot in the frame. And this was how they had identified him also with Kathleen's deletion, because when they showed him the video that he had taken of her, at one point his foot was in the video, and they told him that looks like the shoes you're wearing. Well, now we have this picture that they found of this beaten woman, and it was the same thing. They said the foot was there and it matched the same shoes they had found. Now, according to Detective Brennan Lee, who is now on the screen, let's all take a good look at Mr. Lee, because he's got some explaining to do, guys. It was the Anchorage safety officer that told them that the woman in these 3 pictures reminded him of Cassandra Lee, because she'd been reported missing in September of 2019. So this was over a month later. So it was a current, hey, this woman was just reported missing. That looks like her. But they didn't go show the family that had missing posters out, that had reported it. They kept it quiet for 5 years. The police they said they couldn't make sure that it was her. And they weren't even sure if the woman was deceased. So they didn't bother talking to the family. Doc, can you believe that one? They didn't even talk to the family. So when Thing 2 was confronted about this, he claimed that, oh, well, that's a friend of mine. And we were drinking, and she was trying to go to the restroom, and she fell over, and she was laughing, and I was laughing. And when I left, she was fine. Like we're going to believe him. And of course, he never told them who she was. I don't know if he even knew. Sarah, you're right. 5 years. For 5 years, they did not tell that family, and those people were looking for her. And here's some pictures of her family. These photos were buried until July of 2024, and it's because the prosecutor got them out because he was going to use them for the sentencing memorandum related to Thing 2's trial. So he wanted to show these photos at the trial, but they had to go tell the family. So, I mean, that just blows my mind. So what they found out was the family looked and they're like, yeah, that, you know, they thought that was, you know, their missing loved one. But now we're going to take a little side note, because there's really this really disturbing connection with a man named Ian Calhoun, okay? This one's going to blow your guys' mind, because it did mine. This case, there were some text messages between Thing 2 and Calhoun. Calhoun was 27 years old. He was an Anchorage death metal drummer. I'm sorry, when you see his picture, you're going to laugh. Because he looks like, you know, I don't know, a car salesman. He does not look like some death metal drummer. And so these communications reveal that he had knowledge of the crimes. And it's really disturbing how they go into the level of what he knew about this. And Thing 2 started texting Calhoun hours after the deletion of Kathleen Henry. Okay? So it's like 12:54 a.m. He texts Calhoun. And what he wants to know is, hey, you around? I'm having some fun. That's the picture. Him in the yellow shirt, you guys, is Calhoun, the death metal drummer. So, but his casual tone, I mean, can you imagine? Hey, I'm having fun, yeah? Just so casual, like it's no big deal that I just tortured and deleted a woman. Then at 9:20, he sends him another message saying, I have something to show you. Something I can't keep for too long. Now this time, Thing 2 had concealed Kathleen's body under a tarp in his truck bed. They must have video from the hotel, because he had taken her. She was the one he took to the hotel where he had his employee discount when he deleted her. And they have pictures and video of him leaving with a luggage cart and something wrapped up in a sheet. Oh, that would have been Kathleen. So he put her in the truck, put a tarp over her. So then he agrees to meet with Calhoun at Forsyth Park. Now, this is a children's playground. It's near his home, Calhoun's home. And the FBI is able to use phone records to say that, yes, these two met there. And, you know, they were there for about 10 minutes. Now, Calhoun does not like to, you know, they did interrogate him. Well, I don't know if you could really even call it an interrogation. They brought him in. The thing you're going to find out about Calhoun is he has connections. So, you know, we can't just go around blaming him for anything. I'm trying to find my document here because I did have a huge document that I found of his little conversation. But before we get there, when they did find Kathleen's body on the highway there, the Seward Highway, and this was on October 2nd, Calhoun sent Thing 2 the news link, and then Thing 2's response was, oops, you know, I thought it would this took so long, you know, wow, I thought it would snow. And he's like, yeah, I was hoping for snow too. I mean, they were talking about it like they're talking about trash. And Kathleen was not garbage. She was a human being. She was 30 years old. She loved poetry. She'd had her GED. She was struggling, but she was trying. And this is how they talk about her. Oh, okay. Well, Ian Calhoun. Now, I think there is, I think, a famous musician named Ian Calhoun. It's not this guy. But, maybe that's why he got into it. I don't know. But he was never charged with any crime. His attorney invoked the Fifth Amendment for him during the proceedings so that he didn't have to testify. Wasn't that nice of him? Because we don't want poor little Ian to have to do anything. But he was from Alaska, Sarah. I think his whole life he's lived up there. I think, yeah. But it was the lack of accountability with Ian that the members of the Native community activists have gone crazy. They want this investigated. They're protesting. There's even if you go to, I just look up Ian Calhoun in reference to the memory card murders. There is a petition to sign because they want him investigated. They want him charged because, he saw Kathleen and she's the one there with, in the photo. He saw her body and did nothing. He went out and looked at it. Right now, under Alaska law, it's only punishable by a $500 fine. But they think that there's more that he knows or has done. They've actually started legislation for the Kathleen's Law, where it will make it a criminal offense not to report crimes that are violent, like murder. And people are just stunned that the police have done nothing with this guy. Okay? In fact, Elena Cormick has tried to get the arrest reports, and they want to charge her like an astronomical amount above what they're supposed to for public records. That's how much the cops are protecting everything. LaDonna, I agree with you. There's a really old case. I can't remember if it's in Illinois or somewhere where there was a woman out in a courtyard of an apartment that was deleted and was being attacked, and people watched and did nothing. I mean, that's got to stop, because we got too many people that are just, don't want to be part of the community.
Unfortunately, there's lots of people that don't want to get involved. So
you're right, Doc. Sad. So despite the evidence, because they did have this interview with him, I'm going to grab my laptop here. Okay. They asked him, he said, remember, like I told you I can't. And he says, well, he scared me. He made a comment about like, oh, I got myself a sex doll. You know what I mean? Like he was talking about having like something he could use. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, you picked up a sex doll and we were back by the truck and he flipped a thing back and it just looked like a doll. I mean, it looked like it was just a body. I didn't think anything of it because I know the sex dolls nowadays are pretty high tech. So I just figured, okay, whatever. And then we went to get a drink, and then that was kind of like it never happened. I didn't even really put two to two together. Like he started making more of these comments and then seeing the thing in the news, and it's like, holy crap, that was real. He's such a little liar. Because he wouldn't have made that text to him about, oh, here's the link that they found her body. I mean, come on, dude. We know you knew it was no doll. And it was no mannequin.
never.
It's never the mannequin. So, yeah, that was how he taught. And one of the police officers even told him, well, we know you're a good guy. We know you're a good guy. Oh, yeah. I mean, they were making excuses for this guy right from the beginning when they brought him in. It makes you ill. But it raises questions about the justice system. And this is the officer that talked to him, okay? One of the problems is he comes from a powerful family, this Calhoun guy. He has connections with his parents in municipal management. He's a trust fund baby. He's also, that drummer. His father-in-law serves as president of Co-Alaska and is on the government advisory board on roads and highways. On his interview, he also kept, well, my wife's getting ready to have a baby. If I was that woman, I would run for my life. That man shouldn't be around anybody, no women, no children. And if I can't imagine why her father has not gotten her out of there. And then this is Detective Cordy, and he's the one that when he was questioning him, telling him, oh, you're a good kid, even though they have all this evidence of these text messages between him and Thing 2, and he's telling him he's good. And then they use that, the third thing was they used that legal, he took the fifth and prevented him from having to testify. So this all happened. He was arrested in 2019. His trial did not happen until February of 2024. And COVID, I'm sure, is part of the reason got in there. So he stayed in jail, though. They didn't let Thing 2 out. The trial was 17 days. The judge was Kevin Saxby. He was a character. But he wanted to protect the families and the galleries as much as possible because he knew they were going to have to show these videos, you guys, of Kathleen as she was being deleted. And it's over 36 minutes of seeing and hearing this poor woman as he's berating her and torturing her. And so he, of course the defense is like, well, they shouldn't be shown. We don't really know the provenance of this memory card because, let's be honest, Valerie had light fingers and took it. And so they're trying to say that, maybe somebody, put that stuff on his phone. It had his South African accent. I think that kind of gets you. There's not that many South Africans running around up in Alaska because that was a question that the detectives actually asked him about. And he says, oh, there might be 2 or 3 more. So they zeroed in on that. But so the judge brought in a screen and had it aimed at the jury. Unfortunately, they let this Thing 2 also watch. And I'm sorry, you guys, watching him in court, they said he just sat and watched the video. He was proud of himself. He is a sick, twisted puppy. And I'm sorry, the things he said about his audience and what are they going to think of his followers going to think of him. He even made the comment about hit the subscribe button. So you guys, I think this guy was making films and I think he was putting them out somewhere. I'm sorry. I just really do. The defense, of course, was trying to say, well, there wasn't a lot of physical evidence. Well, for Veronica, for one thing, she had been deleted in 2018. So a lot of the stuff they couldn't find, but they did find some blood evidence in the house. They found her where Alicia Youngblood had told them finally, and after Thing 2 confirmed, yes, this is where I took her. They wouldn't believe Alicia the first time. But it only took the jury 2 hours. And they were like, under 2 hours. They're like, yeah, this guy's guilty. The judge sentenced him 226 years because they don't have the death penalty. He got 99 for each murder for the 2, Veronica and Kathleen. And then he got 28 years for other charges like, SAing Kathleen, tampering with evidence. And during the trial, they had used only the victim's initials. But when the judge was sentencing them, he used their names because he said Thing 2 had dehumanized them enough. And he wanted to give them some respect back. And they deserved their names. And so that's why he used Kathleen and Veronica's names in his sentencing, because he felt it was the respectful thing to do for these women. He said that there's no hope and no restoration of thing two coming back. You know, he can't be rehabilitated. He said, we have to lock him up or he's going to kill other people, basically. That's, you know, he's down to earth judge. I like him. Veronica's daughter gave a really impactful statement. She wanted him to rot forever. That poor girl has been through so much. It broke my heart. One of the things, I don't know if I put this in later, but I remembered it now. One of Veronica's struggles, the daughter found out that her mother had been molested by a Catholic priest when she was young. And so that could account for some of her addiction issues. You know, LaDonna, I'll tell you why he went to trial, because he tried to take his confession back. The guy was a moron. He did an interview and he tried to say that, well, there's no real evidence that it was me, you know, and the reporter's like, really? You know, that doesn't sound like you? Well, it does sound like me. And I mean, I did find this body in my truck, but I didn't put it there. I was just scared. So, I mean, I did, you know, drop her off. This guy was just, JD needs to send up a wood chipper to Alaska. So this picture is two of the jurors that actually wanted to be at the sentencing, Duncan and Stewart. Duncan's in therapy. He said after having to see the videos, he had to go to therapy. Now, Cassandra's family, after this all happened, they petitioned for a presumptive death hearing. And it's really a big step. They usually do it with hikers or boaters that have disappeared. But, you know, they took this away from the police because they had sat on those photos for 5 years and never told this family, who was out there looking for their loved one. And I'm sorry, Detective Brendan Lee, the fact that you kept that quiet and then tried to say, oh, well, we couldn't be sure it was her and we couldn't be sure she was deleted. Someone take his badge away. So they went to the courthouse and they said it was packed for this hearing. The family had red shirts on. It's on the front, it said, "Where is Cassandra?" On the back, "Justice for Cassandra," and also, "We want answers." Now, this judge was Brian Clark, and he explained that in this kind of a hearing, you just have to have more than 50% of believing what you're being told. So it's not like the jury has to 100% believe everything that they're told. But if more than 50% of this information makes sense, yes, you can rule on it. So they had hours of the family and witnesses testifying. They pointed out that the tattoo that Cassandra had of the blue butterfly matched. They talked about the size of her feet. She must have had tiny feet. And also the timing. They talked about the timestamps on the phone that belonged to Thing 2. And it was around the same time that she had disappeared. So the jury then came back and they confirmed that, yes. Even the Detective Lee confirmed that the shoe in the photo matched ones they found in Thing 2's home. Because remember, I told you there's a foot in the photos of this poor girl laying on the ground. So he acknowledged that. And so the jury came back and it was unanimous. They said that Cassandra Lee Biskovsky was dead and the cause was homicide. The spokesman for the family, Terry, spoke and she said that they do feel some closure, but, they don't have the hope anymore. When she was just missing, they had hope, but that also kept them in a state of paralysis. It's like you just couldn't move. and she had children. So the family needed some finality here. They're glad that they have declared it a homicide because hopefully they want the police now to try and locate her body. Yeah, LaDonna, you're right. He thought he was making a movie. In fact, he said he was going to get an award for this movie. In the film, they found video or other footage at his home when they, dug through it, and it was footage of Veronica, when she was taken and deleted. And in that, he's actually in the video. So I don't know how he thinks he's going to get out, because he's trying to appeal this. Yeah, dude, you're never getting out.
On what basis?
He's crazy. He doesn't think that they have enough evidence that it was him. They have a video of him from the shoulders up with nothing on, talking to the video about what he's done. And he thinks he's just going to walk away, Doc. The guy's delusional. And his wife stood by him through this whole trial. That's what got me, you guys. She stood by. She wore a sweater he bought her. And I'm just like, oh, please no. What is wrong with you? The families were irate because she was just in another world. But this is the case of the memory card killer and it exposes the flaws in the system and how they treat the vulnerable communities, And it's a historic pattern of dehumanizing Indigenous people that is still continuing to show up in the responses to violence with the police, that they don't do anything. They just, oh, well, these girls they're walking the street, they're drinking, they're taking drugs. Now, this is a picture of Michael Livingston. He's a retired police officer. He's also a missing and murdered Indigenous activist. And he says that really Cassandra's case shows the systematic issues that just failed everywhere. He says it's a huger crisis. He says, how many more unidentified victims are in police files? If they kept these photos of her for 5 years, how much more evidence do they have? And people are out there looking for their loved ones, and they're not getting the information. Kristy, you're right. We do need to preach about it. Get it out there. People need to say, this is wrong. We're not going to take it. And, why aren't law enforcement doing something? They need to be out there saying, we've got to, dig into these files. See if this thing too flew around Alaska. You don't think there are more victims? Oh, I do. I think there are a lot more victims. He spent 5 years in Alaska. Now, according to the U.S. Justice Department, they say the cases routinely receive fewer resources when they're Native or Indigenous. There's less attention to similar crimes because of the non-Indigenous victims. Thing 2 exploited the disparity targeting marginalized individuals precisely because they calculated their disappearance would generate minimal concern. That was what he said. In his interview, he said, well, I feel more comfortable around the Native people. No, he felt more comfortable because he knew he could use them as victims. They wouldn't be missed. Livingston's powerfully stated in his presentation on the murdered and Indigenous people that just because someone has a drinking problem, just because they take drugs, or they might choose a lifestyle we don't think is safe, like being a sex worker, it doesn't give anyone the right to think they're less than human than we are. A lot of these girls have issues. Veronica, we found out, had been molested by a Catholic priest as a child. We don't know what, Kathleen had been in a situation where her parents had a drinking problem. So she was raised that way. She didn't know any other way. It doesn't make these people bad people. One interesting thing I came across was one woman that was a sex worker said a lot of people think, well, if you get rid of the men that pay for this, women won't be sex workers. And she says, that's not always true. She says, get rid of my bills. I have a house payment, I have children, and, I have light bill, and I have all these other bills, and there aren't jobs. So it's really a tough situation. So we shouldn't judge, when you can help someone. If you have a family member, if you can help them when you can. We don't know what causes some of these women. Veronica, she had told her daughter she liked being homeless. And it may be because she felt trapped because of what had happened to her as a young person. And that might be why when he wanted her to go shower, she freaked out and wasn't going to go do it. I don't know. But they're still human. They deserve their stories to be told. They deserve to have answers. This picture is a picture taken out front of Calhoun's house. Well, pipsqueak. And he called the cops on him, and the cop came out. He goes, okay, well, you're on the road. Okay, everything's fine here. Have a nice day. And laughed because they weren't doing anything. Just because they held up signs, letting him know that they know he knows more about this case. So with the neglect of Cassandra's case, the accountability for those that could have prevented it, you think of the families. Kathleen Joe Henry's family. Veronica Rosaline Abouchuk's family. Cassandra Lee Boskovsky. Justice has only been partially served with things to conviction because Cassandra's still missing. They have not found her body. They know she's deceased, but they haven't found her remains. I would think with phone data, because that was one reason they were able to pinpoint when he dropped Kathleen off. Why can't they use the phone data to track where Cassandra was laying on the ground? I mean, maybe that's not where he left her, but they have a time period. And why they can't work with that, I don't know. Whoops. Yay. But so that's a question I have, is why can't they get the phone cell data, get that cell bright working, people, and find out where he was at that time when those photos of Cassandra were taken? Because that was Cassandra. I think we all know. The tattoo, the shoes, her feet, it was her. And so they should be able to track her down. You like my alarm, LaDonna? Hey, gotta have a little music to wake up. What can I say? So what did you guys think tonight? Did you think it's hard to believe that this guy, got away with it for so long. It really makes you wonder. It breaks my heart that these poor girls were just marginalized, really, by society, because they really were. It's not right that they were. We have to speak for them. Let me see here. Whoops. Me and my computer having fun. You did not. I know. Maybe we can get JD to send one up. What do you think?
Wood Chipper Express.
The Wood Chipper Express. JD should start building them. I think he'd make a ton of money. But you guys, you're all awesome. I love you all for coming and hanging with me. I just feel like a lot of these stories need to be told. I do have a special thing for the murdered and missing Indigenous women and children, and even men. A lot of them are disappearing. And there's different kinds of trafficking out there. It's not all about sex. Sometimes they kidnap people for work, and different, illegal things. So these are vulnerable people, sadly, and people aren't speaking up. Red is the color to wear. We've seen the symbols of the hand. If you get a chance and go online and some of these tribes have clothing, t-shirts. I wore my cat that says roar because he's roaring. He's mad. But I thank you for choosing Trial Junkies. I'm Z. I've got my ride or die doc here. We're going to be back on Sunday with another story that's going to demand us to tell it. Every killer counts on your silence. Don't be the reason we have to tell another story on this channel. If you know something, say something. Because that wasn't a mannequin. It never is, you guys. Good night. I love y'all. Ooh, okay, LaDonna. I'll check into that. You're right, Spectrum. Yeah. You guys all have a good night. We'll see you Sunday. Drop me a line if you guys want me to look into a story. Ciao. Moo, did you wake up? Come here, Moo Moo.